At what point do you realize that the fans are saying Heath every time you catch the ball?
Not right away. Not right away. I remember the first preseason game. It was kind of, it wasn't as loud as it became, but people started yelling. It was like a low, mumbly roar through the stadium when I caught the ball. And I remember like, oh, geez, did they want maybe someone that they were happy with the pick? Maybe someone else selected that in the first round that year. But then I quickly realized, they were saying my name. And I think throughout my career, especially toward the end, I kind of realized what a special bond that not only the team has, but, I felt like I had with the fans and how much they appreciated what I brought to the team and the way I went about my business. And it was really cool.
All right, Heath, I want to start with a quote about you from Mike Tomlin, and then without allowing you to respond, I want to ask about your childhood and the place you're from, and then we'll circle back to these words a little later.
Okay.
Here's what Coach Tomlin said. He is not low maintenance, he is no maintenance. Largely and in every instance, we are all human, we all fall short. I don't know if I have ever seen a regrettable moment from him. That's what Mike Tomlin, your coach for 9 seasons, said about you upon your retirement. Now, when I asked a few people, all of whom you know, about what they wanted to hear from Heath Miller, they all said, we want to know more about Swords Creek. We want to know more about Honecker High School. So paint us a picture of the area in which you grew up and how it helped shape you.
Well, I grew up in a town called Swords Creek, like you said. It's about 10 minutes from the bigger town of Honecker. So, I grew up as a kid. I didn't have a lot of interest besides playing sports. That's all I did. Oddly enough, the cable package that we had I think it was WGN, which was the Chicago station. So we had every Chicago Bulls game, nice. Every Cubs game and White Sox game. So, as a young kid, I lived to watch Michael Jordan play and go out in the backyard and shoot hoops. But as far as the town itself, there's, as you would imagine, there's not a lot going on. So, sports was kind of it there. And that certainly was great for me.
We'll go chronologically and get into your Steelers career a little later. But are there any parallels to Swords Creek and Pittsburgh? I have to imagine hard-nosed, hard-working sort of places.
100%. In my part of Virginia, when I was growing up, it was big coal country. So a lot of people, my family did not, but a lot of people in the area, they worked in the coal mines. That's how they made their living. And so it's very blue collar. You're known for your reputation. Everyone knows everybody. So, your reputation means a lot in those small towns. And so when I went to Pittsburgh, it was honestly the perfect fit because Pittsburgh, I've always called it a small town with kind of the big city amenities. And the whole city rallies around their sports teams. They value guys who come to work and work hard. It's obviously a steel mill town. And, so those values are a part of Pittsburgh's core. And so for me, I couldn't think of a better place for me to play football.
It bears mentioning that you will be the head football coach at a local high school this coming year. Before we get there, what do you remember about your years at Honecker? What got through to you as a high schooler?
Well, I think just looking back, growing up and, the impressionable, you're playing high school sports at such an impressionable age and you spend so much time around your coaches. And I think, I think back to my baseball coach, my football coach, basketball coaches, and I learned so many lessons and values of hard work and just, they were reinforcing things that I saw from my parents and just the community itself. And, little did you know at the time, those are traits that you carry on with you for the rest of your life. And so I think it's pretty cool. And now being a high school coach and kind of understanding maybe, I don't want to call it weight, but the impact that you can have on a young man at this point in his life, it's pretty cool. And, I've been able to learn a lot throughout my career. and be around a lot of great coaches and great players. So if I can, impart some of the wisdom that I've gained along the way onto those kids that can help them throughout the rest of their life, I think it'll be awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. And you went to Virginia as a quarterback. Did you have every intention of sticking at that position when you came to Charlottesville?
Well, throughout my recruitment, other schools have breached the idea of changing positions. So I knew it was on the radar. I was a big kid. I was probably about 230 when I came to UVA. So, I knew I could potentially play another position. I liked every aspect of football. I wasn't a quarterback who didn't like to get grimy and dirty. I loved playing defense on my high school team and making tackles. So it was always on the radar. Virginia did say, "Hey, we'd like you as a quarterback," and that's one of the reasons that I did come to Virginia, because I'm like, you know what? Let's give it a chance. Let's see if I can make it. I did it, but I realized pretty on, like, ooh, this is a hard position. there may be an easier way to get on the field. So,
Matt Schaub's probably in the room. Marcus Hagens comes in
yeah.
with you. I mean, there was a little bit of competition. How did UVA pluck you out of Southwest Virginia? I know there's another school pretty close to where you're from.
Yeah, well, they were probably my top two choices. Virginia Tech. I didn't have a ton of options, to be clear, but Virginia Tech and Virginia were the two schools I was choosing from. Virginia Tech had just went to the national championship the year before with Mike Vick, so their class was full that year. They offered me a scholarship, but they were hoping that I could either wait, and if someone didn't qualify, they would have room for me, or come in January of the following year. And that kind of sealed the deal for me. And I was like, you know what? I like both schools. I really like Virginia too. So let's give it a shot. So, but going back, yeah, that quarterback room, Matt Schaub and Bryson Spinner were kind of competing for the starting job my first year on campus. And then another quarterback, Marcus Hagens, who's a close friend of mine, came in. We were together, and I saw him throw the ball a couple of times, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that. And then I saw him run. I'm like, I can't move like him. So I would have been holding a clipboard for probably my whole career when I was here. So I didn't want to come from Swords Creek, Virginia, and everybody's watching for me on TV, and they never see me. So I knew if I changed positions, maybe I could be on special teams or at least get on TV.
So why tight end? Were you the most important person in making that decision? Were there any coaches who pointed you toward tight end? Because it worked out pretty well. Mackey Award, All-American, ACC records, I think, in catches, yards, and touchdowns by a tight end when you left. It sure did work out. Who's the one who pointed you in that direction?
Well, I think, looking back, it's like the stars really aligned for me and things just fell into place. When I first came to Virginia, there was a graduate assistant coach who also just came to Virginia named Andy Heck, who, by the way, had just retired from playing double-digit years in the NFL.
Yeah.
Wanted to get into coaching. So somehow he landed at Virginia. So he was the tight ends coach. He ran the scout team. He and I formed a quick bond, and he would tell me, on the scout team in college, there were like 6 quarterbacks over there. And when you're the youngest, you're the lowest on the totem pole. So I'm not getting any reps on the scout team, any reps at all. But there was like only 1 or 2 tight ends. So then I started, coach said, hey, jump in at tight end, and he kept pushing me to pursue it. And he spent extra time with me every week during my redshirt season to kind of teach me, the proper way to blocking, everything I needed to know to make the transition. And so even to this day, he's a mentor of mine, and a great person that I would say, give the most credit for pushing me along the way. And obviously, Coach Grove gave me the option to play tight end, suggested I play tight end. Said I really think you could have a long career here, and I just gave my full trust to those guys and jumped in head first, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, then you said to him, it's not going to be that full, coach. I'm going to play 3 years and then leave early and be a first-round draft pick when you move me to this position. How'd your time at quarterback help you play tight end? Because obviously you go to the league, play with a guy like Ben, who's a freelance artist, and you really just need to get open, get into his vision, and he'll find you, it seemed.
Yeah, I think playing quarterback, and I also just think just playing sports as a kid in the backyard in recess at school, I think you just have a feel for how to get open, when to get open, and I don't know, just how to compete and play. Sometimes I think youth of today, everything's so structured, and they have a hard time of thinking outside the box and being a little bit creative when it comes to doing certain things. And so I think that helped me, and obviously having respect and appreciation for the quarterback position and how difficult it is, because I had played it. I got a brief understanding of how difficult this is going to be in college. I always had a ton of respect for what those guys have to process and what comes along with playing that position. So, and then moving to Pittsburgh, like you said, Ben did his best work on the fly almost most of the time, and he and I were always most of the time. I could probably count maybe a handful of times that maybe we weren't on the same page, but we kind of saw the game in the same way, and we just kind of had that synergy together that worked really well.
You broke into the league in 2005. It's crazy. You've almost been out of the league as long as you were in it here at this point. You go to a Super Bowl your first year and win it. You go to 3 Super Bowls in your first 6 years. Who were some of the older guys on that Pittsburgh team, some of the old heads who taught you how to be a professional football player, a successful professional football player?
I think I was just so grateful and lucky to come to the Steelers. I remember the first time walking down the hall. Oftentimes they would put pictures from the previous year. During the game week, it would be from the previous game, but this was the off season, so previous year. And I saw a picture from the Pro Bowl, and there were like 10 guys in the picture, and I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah.
I think 3 offensive linemen were in the picture, and then Jerome Bettis was in the picture, Hines Ward was in the picture, and obviously all the great players from the defensive side. So I didn't have to look very far to find, as they call it, professionals, guys who do things the right way and who've had long careers and who handle their business and take care of their body and eat right. Everywhere I looked, I could find someone to follow. So I just tried to follow guys' lead, guys like Alan Faneca, who's a Hall of Fame player, the way Jerome Bettis could interact with his teammates and make everyone feel welcome and lead the team in that way. And Hines Ward, the way he played, he kind of took me under his wing and taught me the nuances of the offense. And I mean, I could go on and on. The tight ends, Jeremy Tooman, and even just defensively and off the field, I learned so much about how to be a good husband and a good father to my kids and a good person off the field and be helpful in the community. So I don't know. I'm biased. I think that's a huge reason why we were such a good team for that span of years is because of the quality of people that were in the locker room.
The second Super Bowl win over Arizona, you have 2 of the most iconic plays in football history. Take me through your vantage points of the James Harrison pick. Clearly you're on the sideline.
Yeah.
But it looks like he should have been tackled about 5 times. There's a flag that's thrown, time's running out in the first half. Take me through that play, and then, of course, the game winner with Santonio when you're on the field.
Yeah, well, I think with James's play, and the defensive guys can probably be a little more clear on this, but I do recall throughout the week leading up to the game, Coach Tomlin pointed out some interceptions in practice, and, it's week whatever, 20-some or whatever. It's February. Guys are tired, but, guys are kind of just jogging the ball back down the field. And, he made a point, hey, let's finish this play. And sure enough, prophetically, it was, great on his part because it turns out in the game that's one of the most iconic plays, and you can just see the effort. And to me, that symbolizes what that team was, and some things I was talking about earlier is how much the guys really cared for each other and worked for each other, and they didn't care who got the credit. It was about what the end result was for the team. And, you see guys laying themselves out on the line, some guys making 2 or 3 blocks, and it's just a perfect symbol of what made that team special. So, and then for Ben's play, it was amazing. I mean, one of the greatest throws and catches. People always talk about the catch, which was amazing by Santonio, but if you look at the throw and the what he had to navigate to throw that ball over and into Santonio's arms, it was the perfect pass at the perfect time. I was on the other side of the field coming across, and I don't know. I think it was too good for me to believe because I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. Everyone was celebrating. I'm like, guys, stay calm. We might have to score again, if this is incomplete. But yeah, it was an amazing play, and I'm fortunate to to have been on the field for both of those.
Yeah, I love how you call it Ben's play, first of all. And that was a second down and about 30 seconds left in the game. And it should surprise no one that everyone is dogpiling Santonio. And you're seeing in the replay nonchalantly walking over to him, probably saying good catch or something of that sort, or
Yeah.
let's make sure you actually did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, this, at what point do you realize, and you might say right away, dummy, at what point do you realize that the fans are saying Heath every time you catch the ball?
Not right away. Not right away. I remember the first preseason game. It was kind of, it wasn't as loud as it became, but people started yelling. It was like a low, mumbly roar through the stadium when I caught the ball. And I remember, like, oh, geez, did they want maybe someone that they were happy with the pick? Maybe someone else selected that in the first round that year. But then I quickly realized, they were saying my name. And, I think just being an introvert, I might have been a little bit embarrassed by it at the beginning, because you're a young guy and you don't like a lot of attention drawn to yourself. But I think throughout my career, especially toward the end, I kind of realized what a special bond that, not only the team has, but, I felt like I had with the fans and how much they appreciated what I brought to the team and the way I went about my business. And it was really cool. Very cool.
Yeah, cool for us too, as Virginia guys who take pride in watching our own do well. I mean, that's the coolest thing in the world to hear 70,000 people screaming your name. And I think now they've transitioned to Muth, but even when the guys after you, a tight end would catch the ball, they would still say Heath.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one of the coolest things ever as well.
Those guys, well, it was cool for me. Those guys probably hated it.
uh, Talk a little bit more about your relationship with Ben. What made that connection so special? I mean, is it as simple as you came in at virtually the same time and it's quarterback and tight end, or is there more to it than that?
I think that's a big part of it. And then, we were kind of, as I alluded to earlier, Ben was drafted the year before me. I was the year after him. So we were kind of the young guys on that offensive team. There were a lot of old veteran guys. So that ultimately, brought us together. We were roommates in training camp for a few years. So, we spent a lot of time together. We had a lot in common. Our families just in general had a lot in common. And just based on those things, we were, we were kind of close from the beginning. And, obviously when you play with a guy for 11 years, and he's your quarterback the entire time, that bond just grows and gets better throughout time. And, I feel very fortunate. Not a lot of guys can say, a receiver or tight end, if you could go to a team and say you'll play with a Hall of Fame quarterback for 11 years, you're like, yes, sign me up 100 times out of 100. So, I don't lose sight of how lucky I was to have been a part of his career.
You played in a great division. AFC North is known for its rivalries and being one of the best divisions in football across the years. Not necessarily limiting you to a division rival, but who was the toughest guy you had to go against? Whether that's the toughest guy you had to block or otherwise, who did you maybe not look forward, or did you look forward to going against one of those guys in the week leading up?
Well, I think the obvious answer is the Ravens. I think, that rivalry probably was at the peak midway through my career when they had amazing teams. Their defense was always at the top of the league. Our defense was always at the top of the league. We played and approached the game kind of the same way with a physical nature. And so those games were fun, but also you didn't look forward to them either as as an offensive guy. I think I mentioned earlier, Terrell Suggs was probably got a guy that was really tough for me anyways, because he was so big, strong, fast, but he also played the game. He was so smart also above the head. He didn't play the game in an orthodox way. So, he could jump gaps and still make the play and do things out of the box and out of the norm that you couldn't expect or count on him to do every snap. So that automatically put you in a defensive position as a blocker trying to block him. And so he gave me some problems, but fortunately I had Ben to dodge him back there when he did get by me a few times.
Yeah, for the Steelers fans out there, you played for Coach Cowher for 2 years and then Coach Tomlin the rest of your time. How are those two guys different, and how are they the same?
Well, I think they were the same, and they were both passionate guys. They were love the game of football, but they're also great communicators and also great leaders in the fact that they could always hold the attention of the room, and that's a hard thing to do when you're a head football coach and you're sitting in a room of 50, 60 grown adult men. How does your message not get stale? How can you motivate these guys who've made millions of dollars on a weekly basis? How can you call them out without offending them, in some cases?
Right.
So both of those guys were great at doing that. And I think the only differences I could say was with Coach Cowher, I caught him later in his career. So he had established himself as the head coach. He had a veteran group of guys. He kind of knew what he had with the team, and he knew who kind of his guys were and who his leaders were. When Coach Tomlin started out, he was the youngest head coach in the league. I think maybe the youngest head coach ever at that time. So he kind of came in with a little more force because he had to kind of see who his guys were, see who was going to rise up when things got hard. And then ultimately toward the end of the career, it was much the same as Coach Cowher. He knew who his dogs were, kind of, so to speak, and who he could count on. And they were very much the same. And I think that's why they had both will be in the Hall of Fame eventually. Whenever Coach Tomlin hangs it up, he'll be a Hall of Fame coach, just like Coach Cowher. So, I mean, how lucky was I to play for those two guys?
Yeah, all right. So back to the Mike T quote. He calls you no maintenance, and he said he's never seen a regrettable moment from you. Is that true? Was there anything we didn't see? Have you ever raised your voice?
Yeah, there were a lot of things he probably didn't see. So he wasn't paying attention close enough. But no, it was quite the compliment that he gave me. And he and I always took a lot of pride in just doing my job. And, as I mentioned earlier, the amount of respect I had for the quarterback and the things that they have to manipulate through. A head coach has a lot of things on his mind. And I always thought, Coach Tomlin doesn't want to be dealing with a tight end when he's got receivers and running backs and, other guys on his plate that he has to deal with, or disciplinary issues. He doesn't want to deal with a tight end complaining to him about something that's going on. I don't know. It's very minuscule in his world. So I just tried to show up every day to work, give my best, earn my keep. I just, every time I walked into the locker room, I felt like I had to earn my place on the team. And that's what I tried to do every day, and, just do my job. So I think another coach says that a lot, but that was truly my approach.
Do you see tight ends today who are purely pass catchers and roll your eyes because you took so much pride in being a blocker?
I won't say I roll my eyes, but I appreciate and have a lot of admiration for the guys who do both. I'll say that, but I can also appreciate the receivers and the skill set that they have too. Obviously their numbers are going to be inflated. Yeah, that's when I'll say, hey, you're a receiver if you when the numbers are inflated in comparison to other tight ends. But I have a lot of great, a lot of respect for the guys who do it both. And I think, offensively speaking, I think those tight ends who can block and pass are super valuable to an offense. And, those are the guys that I tend to gravitate to.
Yeah. Is there anybody in the league today that you think is doing that, or maybe is not? Which tight end in the league right now do you like the most?
Well, my favorite's probably George Kittle for sure.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I don't watch the NFL close enough to give you a list. I'm sure there are many other guys who do a good job of it. But, I enjoy the passion that he plays the game with, whether he's blocking or catching. I think it's contagious, and I think that team, the 49ers, feeds off of it. And I think there's no surprise why they're such a good offense, running the ball and throwing the ball. It's because, their tight end's a threat in both of those parts of the game. And, he's a guy that's always fun for me to watch.
Did you emulate a tight end coming up? Because you didn't have much time. If it's your redshirt freshman year at UVA, you may not be watching that position as much. You didn't have a whole lot of time to transition to it. Was there somebody when you were at Virginia who you saw a play and you're like, okay, I can do that?
Yeah, well, Coach Heck, I focused a ton on the blocking part in college because obviously that was new to me. That's what I had to get better at. My tight ends coach was an offensive lineman. Coach Heck he's the offensive line coach for the Chiefs now.
Yeah.
Um, so by nature, that's what he was good at, and which was perfect because that's what I needed. So we watched a lot of a guy named Daniel Graham. He played at the University of Colorado, was drafted by the Patriots. He was just so sound in his footwork and hand placement in the running game. So in college, I watched a ton of his film, and then moving on to the league, I watched a ton of my peers. I always had a lot of respect for Jason Witten and how he played the game in Dallas. But then in the passing game, there's so many good. Antonio Gates, I watched his film a ton. Tony Gonzalez, I watched his film a ton. And then as Gronk came into the league, kind of the back half of my career, I had a ton of respect for the way he played the game. I'm sure I'm leaving people out, but
Those are some good names.
yeah, there was a lot of good guys to choose from.
That last guy's a little different too, in a lot of good ways. All right, so now it's high school head coach Heath Miller. How many times did they have to ask you to do it before you said yes?
Well, they asked me, and I spent probably 2 or 3 weeks contemplating. I talked with our friend Chris a little bit,
Yeah.
who's an alumni of here. And he was a great sounding board for me to just bounce things off of, like, how will this look? How will this work? He connected me with some amazing people who have been, it wouldn't be happening without the people Chris connected me with. Because quite honestly, I couldn't have done this by myself. So, and I knew that early on. So just having guys like him in my corner, and then just the football community in Charlottesville in general, there's so many guys who either played at UVA, went on to play in the NFL, and they're back in town. And no matter what you say, if football is in your blood, it's kind of part of the fabric of who you are. And I think all these guys are kind of looking to scratch that itch a little bit. And we had a camp a couple weeks ago where a lot of guys came out, and I don't know, you could just see the smiles on their faces, guys who haven't been around football for a while, but maybe played 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. And we had a great time just teaching the younger guys in our community, and just imparting, what we learned and what was effective for us, and seeing the passion and the hunger of the younger kids. It's pretty exciting. So that's the part that really excites me about the job, is connecting with the younger guys.
Yeah, you're at a school that it's an independent school. It's enjoyed some success in the past in football, notably when Chris was playing.
Yep.
And then on the flip side, it's dropped down to 8-man in recent years, and now numbers are back up. All right, so what kind of advice did you get once you took the job?
So after I took the job, I bumped into Kyle and Chris's dad, Howie. I think it was at Chris's event, and Howie just said, "Hey, here's all you got to do. You just got to find a guy like Kyle, okay? And just get him out in front of the ball, throwing the ball in the flat." And I'm like, "Okay, where am I going to find a guy like Kyle? Because those aren't walking around everywhere around Charlottesville here." So
Yeah,
that was Howie's simple advice for me to be successful here at St. Anne's.
I think Kyle played every single position along both lines, and then eventually said, "All right, now I want the rock. Now I want to play running back."
Yeah, that's what I understand. Yeah, they said they threw it. I've heard stories of him dragging like pretty much the whole defense down the field for a touchdown. So, yeah, maybe I'll find another Kyle Long somewhere, or I might have to wait about 15 or 16 years, maybe, huh?
That's right. What's going to be your coaching philosophy? What are you going to take from the coaches in your past? What's your vision for now your program?
Well, if you say my program, I think if any of my previous coaches, and that goes back to Al Groh or Coach Tomlin or Coach Cowher, probably hears me address the team, they're probably like, "Hey, I said that." So I don't know if I can claim any of the messages of my own, but I will be sharing. I'll share all the things that kind of stuck with me throughout my career, and I felt like helped me develop as a person on the field and off the field. The great thing about football and being a parent, I have 4 kids, 3 boys and a girl. When I first retired, I was like, I don't know if I want my kids to play football. This is tough. This is tough. But as becoming a parent and seeing my kids get older, I kind of realized and came to the conclusion that I think my kids need football, and they need it, you know, to learn about themselves, to learn how to deal with adversity, to push themselves, to get out of their comfort zone, and kind of, to me, football taught me more about myself than probably anything else I did in life, and that's something that I carry with me on a daily basis, and that's what I'm excited to kind of push these kids here out of their comfort zone a little bit so that they learn about themselves, do hard things together. That's an awesome thing. The friendships and relationships that you form through the game of football with all different types of people. I mean, I'm a guy from Soares Creek, Virginia. My first roommate was Marcus Hagans from Hampton, Virginia. I mean, couldn't have been any two literally different parts of the state. We're great friends to this day, and we'll be great friends for the rest of our life. And that happened because of the game of football. And that's what's so beautiful about it to me. And, that's why I'm excited to see it happen for these younger kids.
Now, if you have a ton of fun and enjoy some success, is this a future career path? Are we going to potentially take this to the collegiate or professional level?
Well, not anytime soon. Not anytime soon. Like I said, I have 4 kids, and they're still my main priority. And the reason I could justify doing this is because my older son was going to be a part of the team. So I was going to be helping coach in some format. I didn't realize, 6 months ago, I never dreamed it would be like this. But here we are. Once Coach Sando decided to take another job, so I'm excited about it. So we'll see what happens in the future.
What position or positions for your oldest son?
Well, I'm not sure. He's young. He's going to be in 9th grade, so he'll probably start out as a receiver and defensive back this year. But I don't know how big he's going to eventually be. So we'll see. It's a tough thing about the school now is our team is 9 through 12, so we don't have a JV team right now. Maybe in a couple of years we can get the numbers up. So kids like my old, rising 9th graders will have more of a chance to play and contribute in a safe way on the field. But so we'll see how it goes.
Well, that's awesome, man. We're wishing you a ton of success and so proud to have watched you both at UVA and in Pittsburgh and have had all that success and be, as Coach Tomlin and as many others have said, really a model human being. So glad to have you back in Seville, and thanks for all your time today, man.
Hey, thanks, Macon. Take care.